And we are live.
And we are dead.
Leslie's dead, everyone. So tonight, for our talk show, we're doing a seance.
No. This is
It's
the whole
a Halloween special.
This is like the line from Stephen King's The Stand. We are dead, and this is hell. Yeah. You do realize that there's absolutely nobody watching us yet.
But we'll get there.
You might want to wait to get into like serious conversation.
We have two viewers. Hello.
Sound man, if you think this is serious conversation, you have not watched.
Of course.
Are you kidding? Have you seen the questions I ask on these things?
And of course, the thing is, this whole thing is being videotaped. So the thing is, people can watch the entire thing live. So the fact that we didn't have people on for the first minute is irrelevant. They'll be able to watch all this silly banter later.
Hello, everybody who is currently watching the silly banter, and welcome to Ask Us Anything with Lord Fafnir and Spawn. This is Lord Fafnir. I am Spawn. And tonight, joining us, we have an excellently lovely human, Reverend Leslie Richard.
Oh, I didn't know that was talking about me.
Yes, I just called you an excellently lovely human, unless you're not.
How would you describe yourself, Leslie, if you're not an excellent human being? Silence.
Yeah, I wouldn't describe myself.
You would not describe yourself.
Well, then Spawn will describe you for you, and then you are stuck with whatever she says.
Exactly, and I've described you as an excellently lovely human being, unless you want to tell me that you're not a human being, in which case that is a whole other conversation.
Wow.
Notice she's not. Notice she's not answering.
You don't know. What's funny is that normally these shows go off the deep end. We're at least like 15, 20 minutes into it.
We're starting off of the deep end, and we have some people joining us. Hello, Wendy. Sound guy has already asked a funny question, so we'll just throw that up for starters.
How tall am I?
How tall is your guest, IRL? How tall are you, IRL?
Like at the top of my head, or like?
Oh my God! Really?
Top of your head. Like,
I'm 6 feet.
Do you not understand the question? How tall you are?
No. I was.
Oh, this is gonna be a long hour.
It would. I just hung out with too many guys, so I'm 6 feet tall.
Excellent. So, Leslie is another one of our awesome psychic friends who does things that we do not do. And Leslie, I'm going to let you do your own little intro to talk about what it is that you do.
Yes, please do so.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Reverend Leslie Richard. I use she, her pronouns. And I am a rune reader. I am a maker of many assorted oddities and fantastic things. So I'm currently starting a shop called Ironwood Ways, and that's where I do my clergy work and making stuff. And I also started very recently a coven-like collective called Ordo Viatorum, which is Latin for Order of the Traveler, and it's a not any particular like people as far as a coven goes. It's more along the lines of like when people are around, they're welcome in the circle, and sort of a collective of different paths, different levels of experience, and just trying to build sort of a community centered around building us all up together, because I know a lot of people that get into it don't really have like what's the word then. Trying to find people that practice the same things that they're looking for is really daunting for new people, and sort of having that network set in place so we can direct them where they want to go and they can try things out as fast as possible is our main goal.
That's awesome.
Excellent.
You know, that reminds me just like a little bit of Cups, like slightly different.
Slightly, yes.
But it reminds me a little bit of Cups. So Cups is the Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans.
Yeah, it's an acronym.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
CUPPS.
Tarot cups?
No, like it's the Coven of Unitarian Universalist Pagans, and you know, they are different forms of pagans that, you know, that all are Unitarian Universalists that get together and do rituals and things like that. And we used to, I don't know if we still do, in the church that we attend in Manchester, we used to have a cups division, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure
it's
if
been-
it's active
It's
anymore.
been inactive for quite some time at this point. So, Leslie, I do have a question because I did not know until recently that you are a reverend. So, can you explain a little bit about that whole ordained clergy aspect that you are?
Yeah, so particularly in paganism, there's not really like a training process set in place just because there's so many different paths that
Mhm.
trying to actually like have one set going forward would be pretty much impossible. You can only really be trained in one specific tradition, and then that kind of makes it hard to act for everybody. So I'm registered through, I think ULC. And I am legally ordained to perform in New Hampshire specifically. And then from there, I have to ask states each time I perform a marriage, if it's out of the state that I live in, if I'm allowed to perform. And each state is allowed to say, yes or no, we accept
Mhm.
your. But I've been, a book just came out by Reverend Laura O'Brien. She's in Ireland, and it's called The Guide to Pagan Priesthood. And it sort of gives like an extra breakdown of what clergy might look like more from a pagan perspective as well. And it gives a better breakdown as far as that's concerned. But I did a whole bunch of research prior to that and sort of looked like what do I think of priests when I hear that word? And then how do I perform that in a way that's inclusive? So I have 2 hand fastings scheduled for 2021, COVID permitting. Otherwise, we have to move back dates again. But I performed a Zoom one a couple of months ago. They were just doing a year and a day promise to each other. So
Mm-hmm.
That's really sweet.
Yeah.
Because I've been asked to do a vow renewal in 2021, COVID dependent. But so I'm just kind of going, should I just go ahead and get ordained so that I can just do people whenever I want? Wait, nope, that was poor wording.
That was
Freudian slip there.
Yeah, do you just, do people whenever you want?
That's called poly, but not exactly. But yeah, the ordination process for pagans is usually pretty simple. There's some online sites that'll sponsor you, or there's a couple different places in New Hampshire that you can go for training, and they will sort of ordain you. But other than that, there's not really a pagan church in particular that sponsors clergy, just because, again, trying to deal with all the different traditions would be far too complicated.
Yes, it would, because pagan is a large umbrella.
Yes.
There are many different things under said umbrella.
But I'm primarily self-taught in that respect. I, do as much research as possible, and I try to make sure that every single set of vows that I write is more tailored to the couple in particular. I'm working on like funerary rite type things, and I've performed a baby blessing. And I'd like to also get into like eventually with the proper schooling, sort of like spiritual counseling.
That sounds awesome.
Indeed.
Is Mom's trying to do some more spiritual stuff in that nature, right? A little bit.
Yeah, trying.
Yeah. She's trying to get into pastoral counseling right now.
Yeah.
So, as everybody who is watching knows, and if we have new viewers, maybe you don't, Ask Us Anything. This is sort of our little hour-long talk show that we do to introduce you all to awesome psychic friends of ours that do things that we don't do. And Leslie does a lot of things that we don't do, including rune readings, which we definitely want to touch on tonight.
Definitely, yes.
So hey Leslie, how do you rune?
How do rune?
How do rune?
How
Yeah.
do Rune?
So a little bit of overview kind of shenanigans. So I primarily only work with the Elder Futhark, which we have found very limited inscriptions of, and we've sort of pieced together as far as archaeologically. Most writings that we find are in the Younger Futhark, but the Elder Futhark is 24 runes. Oh no, hold on.
Is that your husky?
It is.
There-
She's gone.
I was going to say, she has disappeared. Her ruins have made her invisible.
They do that sometimes. So my husky suffers from a thing called reverse sneezing, which is kind of like if she breathes in wrong, it causes like a hiccuping type choking sort of thing.
Never heard
And-
of it before.
Vets don't really know what causes it or like how to stop it from happening, but it's this weird thing. They just call it reverse sneezing, and like I have to like stroke her throat when she's doing it to try and see if it'll help her and at least calm her down. But that started. So anyways, 24 rooms. And as we've kind of talked about, they're a Norse thing in particular. I started it a couple of years ago. I got really invested in Viking culture, and I started doing Viking reenactment. And I went to a group who did a lot more of the historical stuff. They did living history. I started doing Ren fairs. I now do the SEA. And
we know you through the fairs. That's how we all know each other.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How many runes did she say there were?
24.
24 runes.
24.
So I forget who started it. I think it was Edred Thorson. Put a blank rune inside of his rune sets, and he intended it as sort of like a, you have an extra in case you forget and or break or shenanigan one. And a bunch of people were just like, "Oh, there's 25 runes. What does it mean?" And he was like, it's the unknown rune.
It's like red 80 card tarot deck.
Yes, I have an 80 card tarot deck that has two
Two blank cards.
That's meant for if you ever lose a card or two. But I decided to just shuffle them into the deck anyway because I feel like drawing a blank card can send a pretty powerful message.
Which it happened
It happens.
the last time we did this stream with the free readings, we used it. We referred to as the Dark Shadows deck, and yeah, we did a 3-card reading, and the center card was blank.
Oh, hello, Rose from the Netherlands. Wow, thank you for watching so much.
I have a rune
Oh, that's
scan.
awesome. Yeah, the only problem with having a blank rune that means the unknowable is there's already a rune for that. So it's
Oh,
redundant and
Okay,
also just kind of wrong.
well, then call it the Fool rune,
Yeah, right.
the rune with another 0 on it.
because like my real only experience with runes other than the set that Mindy made for me, which is lovely, and I keep them on my altar. My really only experience with like reading runes is the book Dragonology.
I
Which
didn't.
I laughed at you.
I was expecting her to laugh at me, Soundman.
Well, you weren't disappointed.
I
then,
was
were
not
you?
disappointed.
Okay, so for the great unwashed, including her, how do you do a rune reading?
So in some ways it's similar to doing like a tarot reading, and obviously in other ways it's not. So I typically do 1 or 3 rune pulls, and it's basically your standard, like you pull one out at random and hopefully it has something to do with what your question is. So I am also an animist, which means that I believe there is a spirit contained within each of the runes, as well as the runes themselves represent sort of a spirit. So it's kind of like the idea of if you have a plant, there's the spirit of the individual plant that you're working with, but there's also the overarching spirit of like, if you have a basil plant, there's that basil, and then there is basil as a whole. And then from there is plant as a whole. So when I'm working with the runes, it's really about the relationship that I've built with them and sort of the connections and pathways that I've built in that particular respect. So it's kind of like when tarot readers have their own individual interpretations of a card based on when and where it's come up in previous readings. It's the same way with runes. You build a relationship with them, and you can do that through offerings or just how often you use them. Some rune sets are just used for your own personal readings. Some people have rune sets that they can use for outside divination. And other people have like the nice rune set and the really mean rune set. So I have a friend who he has a wooden rune set for regular readings that he does, and then he has an iron rune set for when he knows somebody isn't actually addressing the problem that they're supposed to be addressing, because the iron ones aren't nice and they will tell you pretty much immediately what's going on. Runes are really good at being like, this is what you need to hear right now. They're less focused on timelines and more focused on like what message is going to cut clearest and fastest to get you to go on the path that you're hoping for. But when I do one rune readings, it's usually quick responses like what's the most prevalent question, what is the thing that I need to remember the most. And from there, when I do 3, it's usually like either a branch of what are the 2 like sides of this story, or what, sometimes it's like past, present, future kind of thing. What direction are you trying to head in? And other times it's more like what are the what really makes this issue sort of super relevant in your life. Some people do castings, and I'm working on that. I don't currently do castings for other people. I mostly do it for myself, but I've got a bunch of rune sticks, and the rune is written on one side of them, a little bit smaller, and you cast all 24 of them, and the ones that are facing upright are the ones that you read, and you sort of measure like where they're connected to each other, where they intersect, which ones are sitting upright, which ones cover each other. And usually for those, you need a cloth to keep them in, and then you pretty much unfurl the entire cloth and they spread out across whatever surface you're working on.
Do the runes mean different things depending on the direction they're facing, like tarot cards? If they're upside down, they mean something different?
Yes.
When you cast them like that?
Yes. So there is bright stave, which is when they're facing upright, and that's usually the direct interpretation of the connections that you formed with them. There's murk stave, which is when they're upside down, and that's sometimes it's not really like the opposite meaning, but it's usually more along the lines of like, what are you not focusing on with this? Sometimes it can mean kind of like the darker side of what you're not working on. So for example, when I brought up that there is a rune for the unknown that's Pethro, and it kind of looks like a sideways U with zigzags. And so bright stave, it means like, there's mysteries. It can also mean pocket. So it's sort of like, you've got more things in the bag than you realize. But murk stave, it can also mean like either gambling problems or taking risks that you shouldn't be. And then for some of them, I forget the exact term from it, but it's when they're sideways or they're like reversed the opposite direction, because some of the runes, if you tip them upside down, they look like the same thing, and so they can't really be reversed. But if they end up sideways, it can usually be sort of like something that you really need to address, or in a more defensive, reserved position.
That is a lot of information.
It is.
I'm going to absorb.
And you're right. An awful lot. What you said is you can apply a lot of that individual stuff back to similarities, I should say, to tarot readings.
So
Yeah.
so we have some questions
Yes.
rolling in. First, I'm just going to do this one from Carol. That's just, I hope everyone had a blessed Samhain. Thank you very much, Carol. I know that we did. We had a very excellent Samhain, and I hope you did too. And I hope your Samhain was lovely, Leslie.
Yes, I made sure to make some Blue Moon Samhain water.
Mm-hmm.
And
I started part of it watching Halloween and listening to Donald Pleasance call it Sam Hain.
Uh,
oh no.
yeah.
I was listening to a bunch of witchy podcasts before Samhain actually happened, and I listened to several of them say Samhain, and I'm just like, why? No.
It hurts. It hurts. So
You know,
much.
you could say at least Donald Pleasance. They did it in the '70s, but they didn't know what they were doing. But now, come on.
That
Yeah.
was the metal band, Sam Hain.
So-
And that's how they pronounced it.
Did they really?
So,
Yes, that
Angela,
was-
I hope
Okay.
that Leslie's explanation just then helped answer your question, because I feel like that was a lot of information about runes that she just gave us, which is super awesome. And also, I hope you're feeling better. I love you so much. Angela's my bestie. We've known each other since we were toddlers.
That's awesome. I've got some that I'm working on here. I make little like runic necklaces type things. So if you need evidence of like what runes look like, they're usually along these lines.
Ooh, that's pretty.
I was gonna say because we both have rune sets that Mindy made for us, and so
Yes.
ought to pull those out. And,
Yeah, we have a
Cool.
friend. We have a friend that does a lot of beautiful wood burning
Mm-hmm.
crafting stuff.
Makes very pretty runes.
Let me see. We have one from Chelsea. I can't pronounce that.
Yggdrasil.
Thank you.
I have not heard of those divination cards. So I would have to look into them to give you an opinion. They sound like oracle cards based on the name. And as an animist who believes in the spirit of the runes, it's not so much the medium that they're used through, but more how they're described. So I've seen runes on stone, on wood, on iron.
We also have runes in the particular tarot
Right.
deck that we use.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do show up now and then. Actually, that raises a question from my point of view. Is because I've seen the card like a similar like a tarot deck, an oracle deck with which I have runes on there. I've also seen this for the I Ching, and honestly, I've got my own 3D I Ching set, and the thing is in comparison to that versus the I Ching cards. The I Ching cards I refer to as one dimensional because it really is it is you get the hexagram and that's it. And then, but the thing is, the 3D I Ching that I use gets you so much more in depth. And I was kind of curious, as opposed to like, do you feel the same way with runes? Because again, you toss them, they're essentially their 3D versus say a card with this, which would have a picture of a rune on them. If you have a preference on something, or would it not matter from your perspective?
Yeah. To just finish the question from before is I am not particularly a fan of cards, but that's from a completely personal standpoint of I really like the feeling of the wooden discs and wooden sticks and the more natural materials.
Mhm.
It makes me feel like I have a deeper connection and relationship with the runes. And that might be why I don't do as much tarot reading, just because I don't feel as much of a relationship with them. But
I mean, that's honestly why I don't do stone readings, is I don't feel connections with stone. So
Yeah.
I totally get that.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, it's a rock.
yeah, the most important.
Pretty rock, shiny rock.
Yeah, right.
Charlie Brown, I got a rock.
I got a rock. I want a rock. Rock. But I forget where I was going to go with that.
Sorry, I derailed everything.
It's fine. Something. I prefer the natural materials, and it helps me build the relationship. Oh yeah. So the most important thing about runes really is building the relationships and connections with them. It's not a easy process. It's not hard, but it's usually long, and there's a lot of work that goes into it because you're basically like building those relationships with 24 spirits, and then they're overarching sort of like one spirit, and they'll show you different things as you keep going. A lot of them have, quick, easy themes on them. But for people who know a lot about tarot, it's kind of like you see the flashcards where they'll tell you what the tarot card means, and then there's what it means to you.
Mhm.
And runes are really more focused on the what it means to you.
Cool.
I like that.
I do too, actually.
More questions from people.
Yay. That's the whole point of this. Yes.
Lydia would like to know, what podcasts do you recommend?
So the one I'm going to recommend the most that I binge watched through, it's called Around Grandfather Fire. I listen to everything on Spotify. It's probably on other things, but I can only recommend what I can find on Spotify. So it's kind of heathen focused. In the beginning, they talk a lot about shamanism and animism from a Peruvian shamanism perspective and a Norse shamanism perspective. And they only use the word shaman because a lot of those cultures don't really have a better word to use. Recently, they've started using the word spirit worker instead, just because that's a lot more of what they do. And unfortunately, shaman has been kind of co-opted as like a buzzword. And we're trying to give that back to the Native and Indigenous communities because
Right.
that word is very important to them. But they talk a lot about animism. They talk about psychology. They bring a bunch of different authors and all that onto their show. And it's definitely more heavily focused on like spirit work and religion. And then I recommend, let's see, what else have I been listening to a lot? I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts too, so I'm trying to like edit those out because they're not really relevant.
I do like that. Here's this heathen thing, but also true crime.
Right?
It's true that Lydia didn't specify what kind of podcast, but
That's true. There's
Okay.
also,
Yeah.
I forget exactly who it's put out by. I think it's put out by Sanctuary, but there's one. I listen to the Sagittarius Today podcast, but they have each of the 12 zodiacs, and it'll give you like a daily astrology thing, and you can follow along with that. It does sort of like a daily thing, and they have Capricorn today, and Sagittarius today, and Libra today, and Leo today, etc.
For the
So I've
Sunday
been
newspaper.
attempting to get more into astrology, and I figured that I'd like making it more of a daily practice would help. I also listen to the Nordic Mythology podcast, which is less about Nordic mythology and more about the archaeology and history behind it and how it affects the spiritual side. So like they discuss, one of their recent podcasts was with NB, I believe they use they, them pronouns, who runs a new podcast called Vikings Were Gay. And it talks about the archaeological and mythological evidence we have that Vikings definitely didn't mind queer people, even if we have weird and often misunderstood interpretations of how exactly they felt about the receiving partner. So the Vikings had a word called ergi, which in some translations meant like dishonored, and in other translations meant coward, and sometimes it just meant like the recipient. And so a lot of older cultures, from what we can find in the records, were kind of bottom shamers, which was terrible. And we're trying to understand more about the old archaeological evidence and like from when exactly it was from, and if any of it was influenced by the time it was written down. Because unfortunately, one of the only written works we have from the Viking era is the Prose Edda, written by Snorri Sturluson, and that was written like 500 to 600 years after the Viking Age ended. So he had a foot in the culture in that he was from it, but he was also a Christian monk, and so everything was sort of compounded upon by the time he got there as like his own bias of interpretation.
Damn bias.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to go to the Ordo Viatorum page, I figure I'll let you do the fancy banner thing that you figured out how to do.
OMG,
Funny
you're,
you should mention
you're
that.
so smart. We were actually totally just about to do a commercial roll.
But
So
Thank
before, you can totally go first. Bam!
so that's the community page that we run. I'm trying to make it very not one centralized leadership, but a collective of well-experienced people who can all bring each other together in sort of a, interlocking. We'd have somebody who can help newcomers find the path that they're looking for. That's Ordo Viatorum. It's Latin for Order of the Traveler. And I saw Matt at one point said that he would be told there was no Latin, and I don't know who told you that, but they were wrong.
It wasn't me.
So we have a Facebook, we have an email.
And we also have the second banner for you.
Yep. So that's the business that I'm currently trying to run. That's where I do my clergy services out of. That's where I do my maker stuff. I make rune sets. I make necklaces. I make flower crowns. I have makers with me that do like electroformed copper jewelry stuff and wood burning. I'm currently working on things that I haven't rolled out quite yet, but they're little wooden disc pronoun pins. So
Can you put a little closer?
here we go.
Oh, that's so cute.
Okay.
That's so cute. I like it. That's really cute.
So I actually have a little bit of space. If anybody is Manchester, New Hampshire local, inside of the mall, there's a place called the Manchester Craft Market. And I just recently picked up a little bit of booth space there, and they sell our stock out of there. So if you would like a pronoun pin and you are anywhere near Manchester, New Hampshire, they also do curbside pickup. And they can invoice it to your phone, so you don't even have to go inside of the mall.
You said it's in the mall in New Hampshire?
Yep. It's
Where?
right next to the Dick's Sporting Goods and the Olympia
Where
Sports.
Sears used to
Oh,
be.
where Sears used to be, huh?
Yeah, I think it's in the West Wing.
What's the name?
It's the Mall of New Hampshire.
No, the store that she has the stuff in.
That's part of the craft market, she said.
Okay.
Manchester Craft Market. I have a little booth there. Or like it's a turntable and I own like a quarter of it or something like that.
That's cool.
But on the Ordo Viatorum page, if my ADD stops kicking in and I remember the other podcasts that I listen to, I will list all of them on there and give more in-depth, like, this is why I recommend them. And this is like, if you're looking for this, then go this direction.
We followed her page. She has good content.
Mm-hmm.
When I post it, because sometimes I forget. I apologize in advance.
Now give Leslie a chance to breathe. You did the commercial for us.
Is it time for me to be Vanna
It
White?
is time for you to be Vanna White. Go for it.
Hello to all of our lovely viewers. For those of you that are familiar with us, you've heard this commercial so many times. And for those of you who are new, welcome. I will now be Vanna White for the next 2-ish minutes. So we are Lord Fafnir and Spawn Psychic Readers, and our website is currently on the screen, www.fafnirandspawn.com. You can book with us on our website. You can also book with us on our Facebook page, which is just Lord Fafnir and Spawn Psychic Readers. On our Facebook page, we have a fancy schmancy book now button that also lists all of the services we provide and our prices and just puts you directly into our calendar. It is super easy and very user-friendly. We also are on YouTube at Lord Fafnir and Spawn Psychic Readers, where we post these streams that we do so that you can watch them over and over and over again, because I know that we are just that entertaining. We are also on Instagram at Fafnir and Spawn, where we do daily tarot draws. So if you would like some daily psychic wisdom, please follow us on Instagram. Did I get all of the things?
Now, tell us what's coming up.
What is coming up is next Thursday, we are doing our monthly free reading stream. And as you know, those spots are first come, first serve, but you can pre-book with us. We have 10 spots, so claim now. And at the end of the month, we will be doing our private stream, which is different from the public reading stream that we do, because rather than doing just simple readings, mini readings that we do for the public free one, we go much more in depth. This is a space for us to be able to drop walls and to help you with more serious issues. So that is going to be at the end of the month. It is $20 to participate in that. And
Yes,
only
that's going to be on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. We figure since that's the great day to spend money, spend it on us
and only the people
and yourself.
And only the people that pay to get in are going to be able to view it. So I like to think of it as group therapy. We've had several of these streams so far, and they've all been very lovely. So I highly recommend you join us. End commercial.
That was good.
Thank you.
That's always
because you definitely don't want to be out and about on Black Friday now of all times. Like,
all right, let's get back to some of these questions.
yes.
here.
Where do we leave off here?
Matt has a question. What is the earliest recorded or known use of runes? If you do know that.
So it depends on exactly what you think the runes were used for. For some people, the runes were just an alphabet. For some people, they wondered how they were used magically. We definitely, one of the more recent uses of them is in like Dutch and German housing. If you've ever heard the term Hexenhaus, it's usually they have assorted beams and whatnot, and they would put the beams inside like the shapes of runes that they wanted to draw into their home. So a really famous one is Yalji's, which is the one that sort of just looks like a snowman arm. And that is the rune of, it translates literally to elk, but it stands for protection and also nature. And so by putting it on your house, it was a protective totem and also sort of like a, please land spirits, don't knock my house down or like make it catch on fire and stuff. And, we love you, land spirits, please leave us alone.
So is that how
Should I just explain the rest of the use of
Come
runes?
again?
So now I'm wondering, because we are actually German and Pennsylvania Dutch in heritage. So, there's a huge thing about, hex signs on your barns and things like that all mean. You guys have one in your house that we got for I got that for JD and Adrian a couple of years ago. That's meant to be like, it's like the two things that have like the horses and the heart in the center, and it's meant to be like home protection and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah. I've studied a little bit of powwow, which is the Pennsylvania Dutch magic system, and that's where they sort of mixed Christianity with the Proto-Germanic, really. And I know they have a text. I think you can special order it from like Barnes and Noble and stuff like that. It's called The Long Lost Friend. And it is basically the Pennsylvania Dutch spell book. So
Why don't we have that?
I don't know.
Wow, we are heritage.
I'm half Pennsylvania Dutch myself.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's always been a huge part of like my life growing up. So I'm just like sitting here going, why don't I know about this?
So I actually learned about this on the podcast Lore, which is run by Aaron Mankey. Another podcast I recommend, but it's not witchcraft. It's sort of like weird history and spooky stuff, old folk tales. I will put it all on the Ordo Viatorum page because, again, I'm ADD and I can't remember things on the spot.
And I can answer your question, by the way, why you don't know so much of the fact that your grandmother, my mother, was never into any of this stuff. It was my grandparents that they were the ones that told me all about the whole Pennsylvania Dutch lore. My mother really just...
That's true.
She's like, whatever.
That's true. And I learned everything that I know from you.
Right.
So, okay, that makes sense.
It skipped a generation. So,
Ooh, we have a question from a new person. I love new people. Is sage used to ward off evil in your home if you burn it? Yeah, there are a lot of different herbs that you can burn to cleanse, to ward off things, and all that sort of stuff. I know that there's there's a big debate going on right now about white sage and who can use it and whether or not it's being farmed into extinction and XYZ. So I personally am trying to remove white sage from my own practices just because there are so many other herbs that I can burn that will do essentially the same thing.
Mhm.
I have a list. So specifically coming from a Norse perspective, we would not have white sage. So if you're trying to cleanse a space and you work either Norse or Celtic traditions, you can use cedar, juniper. You can add lavender to things. Lavender is sort of like a modern interpretation of bringing calm into the house. You can also,
Lavender's my fave.
yeah, you can also use mugwort, and or you can use European garden sage. So you can get garden sage as like a dried herb in culinary sections at grocery stores, or you can see if you can find bundles local to you. Again, if anybody is local to Manchester, New Hampshire, there's a small shop here called Myths and Maidens. I have no affiliation to it. I just really appreciate it. And they just recently started carrying cedar and juniper cleansing wands.
Nice.
I think,
Well, now I'll have to go pick some up.
but as far as the white sage is concerned, a lot of us don't know the exact practices that go into using white sage, and that's why the non-Indigenous communities have been asked to not use it. However, if you buy white sage very specifically from Native peoples selling it, then it's considered okay because that is going back into their community and they've sort of blessed that plant for the intended use, and they know how you're going to use it, and they've already talked with the spirits of the plant about that.
Right. Don't buy it from white people, essentially.
Yeah. Unless they bought it from Native people. So it's kind of the, like, as privileged people, we should be, researching and back looking and, how far can you trace back?
Let's see.
I was gonna say, I think you should just keep living in ignorance, right?
Don't keep living in ignorance. Bad. I am feeling called.
I know this person.
I am feeling called to divination lately, but I'm worried what I might be forced to face. Shadow work, What advice do you have for beginning divinatory shadow work? Thank you. I think we all have.
I think we all can kind of like
little
answer that
nuggets of
a little
wisdom
bit there. That one, but if you want to start.
Well, you're 100% right that there will be things that you are forced to face, and honestly, my biggest piece of advice is just get ready and face it, because avoidance is not going to help you, and and
neither does fear, by the way. Fear
and avoidance do not help, and the longer that you avoid, the more it's going to get like shoved into your face. So
that's a nice way of putting that, shoved into your face. Yes,
it's one of those things where in my time I have tried to ignore several situations, and every time that I would do readings for other people, I would get the same card over and over. It didn't matter who it was, and it didn't matter how well the cards were shuffled. Particular cards were always coming up. And at that point, it is not meant for the person you are reading. It's meant for you.
Mm-hmm.
When it keeps coming up like that. So my advice is, before you get into shadow work like that, see if you can face what's ever bothering you on outside of that. Because I feel like that's the easiest way to face things, but that's just my personal opinion.
What I basically tell people is the whole idea of the balance, and realize that you need to embrace, for lack of a better phrase, the title of one of my favorite Clint Eastwood movies, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because they're all there. And there's no way around it, and no one is going to triumph over the others. They're all equally there, or they're equally in balance. You don't have to like it, but it's there. And so you might as well just get used to it and accept it.
Yeah. And from my standpoint, personally, step one is please have a support network in place. Shadow work is like really, really raw. and sometimes it's not great to go through alone. I'm not ashamed to admit that I have a therapist, and I talk to her regularly about things that I have. I also have supportive partners. I have friends, who know that I'm into the witchy thing and whatnot and can help me through things. But try and find somebody who you can talk to. A really good way is, if they have already established that they're there for you, starting conversations with, hey, is it okay if I either vent or ask for your help on something, so that people who may not have the spoons, especially during COVID times, are prepared to help you take on the things that you're facing.
Spoons, for people that are unfamiliar with spoon theory, meaning just like the energy, the time, all of that stuff.
The emotional labor kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And the other thing is that divination is usually mostly really good for giving you centralized themes, as far as you have shadow work to do, but you don't know exactly what you're supposed to be doing yet. Divination can kind of give you sort of like a sounding board of, if I'm working with runes and I get, I don't know, Hagalas, which is the one that looks kind of like an H, but with, instead of a parallel line across, it's sort of diagonal. So that
I know that one.
Yes, it translates to hail. It's kind of, to a greater or lesser extent, it's the equivalent of the Tower card to the tarot. So it's really about like going back to your foundations, and hail comes in and it destroys everything. But eventually, like, the sun comes out and it melts. And sometimes the best way to water plants is to stick an ice cube on them and let the water drip in naturally. So it's really about returning down to the bare soil. And, maybe you don't have what you started with and it's all been destroyed from there, but like, you still have the soil at the end of the day to keep you going.
Really nice metaphor.
Well, it's like the phrase I used in one of the tarot draws we did a few days ago, in reference to how everyone is feeling crazy of late. And I said, don't worry, everything will be as it should be. I didn't say everything was going to be as you want it to be. I said everything will be as it should be, which doesn't necessarily mean that good things are going to happen all the time, because they're not.
Yeah.
But we learn the most when things go skunk.
Yeah,
So,
and like over positivity can be toxic if you're not allowing. I know a lot more people are getting into shadow work because it's an important part of a magical practice, is understanding the parts of yourself that you try to suppress and hide, because those are usually like the main issues.
Yep.
So I haven't seen all that many particular shadow work exercises, and it might just be that I haven't been looking, but one of the first things that I did was, when I started getting into shadow work, I had a lot of holding on to things that people said bad about me, and it affecting my self-esteem. And I took a chalkboard that was kind of little, and I started writing on it, and I wrote every bad thing somebody had ever said about me, and all the negative things, whether or not, it didn't matter if I thought it was true or not, every negative thing. And by the time I got to the end of it, I basically had just a white square of chalk, because I'd written so many things down that nothing was comprehensible anymore. And it took that being like, it doesn't matter. All of that stuff is just this jumble of incomprehensible white noise.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. And that was sort of like a breakthrough moment for me. But I definitely recommend that if anybody has self-worth and self-esteem issues, is just like writing it down till it doesn't mean anything anymore.
Shadow work is not something that you should be afraid of, because if you are afraid of it, it is not going to go well. But it also, is something that you should not take on super, you shouldn't just jump into it.
Yeah, don't take it lightly.
Absolutely not. Let's see here.
Let us move on.
Chelsea has another question. Is it best to make your own runes, or perhaps does a mentor gift you your first set like some other reading methods?
So naturally, with just about anything, it's always better if you can make it yourself. And that's because the time that you spend actually making the things sort of like gives them a power in and of itself. And it really helps build that relationship that I was talking about before, of really building that relationship with the runes. Since they're individual spirits, it allows you to, pick the particular wood that you're going to use, or the particular piece of stone, or if you're a blacksmith, like which piece of metal really wants to be used for insert XYZ runes. There is no other necessarily tradition as far as receiving them. Anyone can gift runes to anybody else. And it's just about sort of deciding if you and those runes are sort of meant for each other. I know some people buy tarot decks and be like, I think it's pretty. And as soon as they open it, the tarot deck's like, yeah, we're not really meant to work together, but you can look at me because I still know I'm pretty. I've gifted away so many tarot decks because I was like, oh my gosh, this is so pretty and I love it. And as soon as I get it, it's just like, we're not really gonna work together.
I've gifted some away because you really have to connect with your tools, and if you don't, it's just not gonna work.
Oh yeah, how many tarot decks do we have down here? I mean, a lot. And yes, some of them are pretty much going to stay in their boxes for a year and more because I'm like, no, not going to work.
Well, like I remember when my aunt, your sister, gave me a tarot deck for Christmas, and it was really nice because like she was really trying to be supportive. But goddamn, I could not read those cards.
I remember those decks. That was not a good deck.
I felt really bad because it was like she really tried, but
Yeah, I was gifted a tarot deck, and they were little circles, and they came in a purse type thing with really fancy embroidery on the top, and there was a book with them. But they were like a woman's empowerment deck, but all the art was like from the 70s.
Oh boy.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I can yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well,
like sketch drawing 70s, and I was like, I can't connect with these at all. Thankfully, those found a home. I was at a craft fair about 2 weeks ago. I've been in quarantine since, just in case. But I did a thing that I called Witch Thrift, which was I find much things on my travels that are not for me, and they're meant to find their forever homes. But I've been gifted by the thrift gods, apparently, and people find amazing things when they're with me, regardless of whether or not they ever find anything if they're, going on their own. And so I tell people, like, let me bring you thrift shopping and we'll find wonders. So sometimes I find things and I'm like, I can more easily, I'm like, I can more easily find you a home. And so I started this like buy, sell, trade section of my little vending booth of, if you have haggly things and you want to trade because you don't have money, like we can make arrangements for that side of the booth, which is kind of cool. But as far as rune sets go, I do make rune sets, and some of them are available at the Manchester Craft Market. After I make them, I store them in plastic bags so that people can still look at them, but they don't have to necessarily touch the runes, just because the runes like to form those relationships with people. And especially in a shop setting, a bunch of people touch at them. And I was trying to avoid as much of that as possible. Not everybody is called to do this, but in some Norse practices, you do a thing called redding the runes, which is where you either take red paint that you can put a drop of your blood in, or you can just use straight blood and sort of trace the lines inside of the runes to sort of like offer them a part of you and really invest in the spirit. It's not part of everybody's practices. It's not necessarily something that I recommend, and it's definitely not something that I recommend lightly. But if you feel a call to sort of activate the runes and you don't want to use your blood, you can also just use like a red paint.
I got a question on that. I'm sorry. So you're only using your own blood on your own runes, right? You're not using your blood and then selling those runes to somebody else.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Don't.
Okay. I just want some clarification there.
Yes.
She's just bleeding on all of the stuff and selling it to random people as a biohazard.
Because that's definitely not a biohazard at all.
Oh my God, this is starting to disintegrate again, isn't it?
A little bit.
All right, all baby witches, I just want to make something very clear. Do not sell or give away anything to strangers that has a tag lock of yours. Tag locks include hair, fingernail clippings, blood, bits of skin, and anything that you wear religiously for a while and don't cleanse beforehand, because tag locks are how people can get hexed if it falls into the wrong hands. Do not give people tag locks of you unless you truly trust them with entirety of your life. It's kind of like the idea that if you're getting a tattoo, only get a tattoo of your children or somebody who's already passed away.
Mm-hmm. See, in my brain, when you said reading the runes, I was like, yes, she comes and then she puts the runes on top of me.
That's
They
a
put the
different
runes on the
We
skin.
should probably charge extra for it.
So I've just got a question. You can
boy.
make like a specific set of runes for like a specific person, because when Mindy made runes for she said that she made a set specific to me, to Dad, and to Mom. Actually, she made a set for each of us. Is that's I just can't talk anymore.
You sound like the teacher on
Yeah, exactly. Well, also the thing is, we often tell the little thing about with tarot decks, how the fact of the wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter. And the thing is, and I guess that with runes, it's kind of the same thing. In the idea of the fact of, since you said it's best if you make your own runes, or if you do have someone else who's made a rune set specially for you, as opposed to, now for people who say, okay, I want to just buy a set of runes off the market, so to speak, like yours, for example, people who don't really know anything about runes. And here we are saying, well, it's best if you make your own, or someone makes them personally for you. And now it's almost like we're discouraging them from like buying just generic runes on the market, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on what you define by generic. Like I've seen,
buying
runes, but I've also seen like
okay. For example, like you make rune sets that you will sell at markets to, and you have absolutely when you make that set, you have no idea who's going to buy it. Mm-hmm. So how is that rune set supposed to then bond with the person who's ultimately going to buy them?
So when I sell them, I typically sell them as like clean slate as possible. When I sell them in person, I do a lot more like blessing and cleansing on them. Sometimes I do some galdering, which is Norse deep intoning. Some people intone at higher frequencies, and some people do like more of a throat singing sort of galder, and it's trying to like invoke the spirit of the rune into that particular tile that you're working on. So I don't generally do those for the ones that are just sitting there at the market, because they're more likely to get muddied and sort of infused with other people's energies. I definitely recommend, if you're going to buy a rune set, that you definitely do a cleansing on it before you work on building your relationship with it. But in person, and or if I think you can message, they have a Manchester Craft Market online Facebook group, and you can sort of like message them there to hold items for you. I can always, if I know that you're going to be picking something up from there or getting the curbside pickup from them, then I can do more of my personal blessings and invoking that I do. And that's more just charging a little bit extra for the time and the energy that I exert into those. But for the most part, I think that every witch would recommend, if you can make it, do it. If you can't, there's nothing wrong with that.
Cleanse.
Yeah.
Do you do throat singing?
I don't do throat singing. I do like deeper intoning. So I am not the Who, but I definitely like blast them in my car and pretend that I can throat sing.
You have an opportunity there to really, really impress the hell out of me, just saying.
Well, this hour has gone by really, really fast.
Yes, it has.
Oh my gosh.
How many more questions? I mean, we don't have to actually cut it off exactly here.
Well, my
Well, you
gosh,
talk too much.
So yes, since our hour is drawing to a close, get your last minute questions in there. And while we wait for people to ask questions, let us have our final commercial run of the evening.
Oh, Lord, here we
Would
go.
you like to go first again, Leslie?
Oh gosh, why do I have to go first? I'm just kidding. So Ordo Viatorum, that's our quote unquote coven collective of it translates to Order of the Traveler, and it's a come as you are sort of, you can come in and out of like circle, not during rituals, but in general as a group, and forming a collective of people who make and mentor and newcomers, and sort of just helping people find the path that they really want to be on. There is a Facebook group that's tied directly to the page. So if you go to any of the stuff that's below me on the screen, you should be able to find it there and finding the group there. So as many people want to post and connect, etc. And what's now on the bottom is Ironwood Ways. So that's the store space inside of the Manchester Craft Market, and I also do online selling. I can do readings online, stuff like that, so you can connect with any of the stuff down there. Ironwood Ways is also where I send all of my clergy service stuff, so if you're looking for clergy services, you can let me know there. That's probably easier to do either over email or by PMing the Facebook page. And that's about it for me, I think.
Okay.
You're better at this than any of our other guests.
You came prepared.
That is true. We did
I
actually
talk
cover-
really fast, and I hope the ADD.
We coached you pretty well on that one, I think.
So, for us, hello, we are Lord Fafnir and Spawn. This is Lord Fafnir, and I am the Spawn. You can find us at our website, www.lordfafnirandspawn.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Lord Fafnir and Spawn Psychic Readers. You can book with us in both places. I personally prefer the Facebook page just because it's so much more user-friendly, with our fancy schmancy Book Now button, which lists all of our services and our prices and can just put you right into our calendar. It's super fancy. We are also on YouTube at Lord Fafnir and Spawn Psychic Readers, where we post all of our live streams and the messages in the music series that Lord Fafnir over here does with his amazing clairaudient talents. You can watch anything that we do over and over and over because we are just that entertaining. You can also find us on Instagram at Fafnir and Spawn, where we do daily tarot draws. So if you're interested in daily psychic wisdom, follow us there, see what we pull on the daily. Coming up on the 12th, we have our free reading stream, 10 spots available, first come, first serve, and yes, you can pre-book, but just know that if you do pre-book and don't show up, your spot will be given away.
Like last time.
Mm-hmm.
We had a few that pre-booked and never showed up.
And on Black Friday, we will be having our private group stream, which is
November 27th, day after Thanksgiving.
which is very similar to the public reading stream, except we offer more types of readings, longer readings, much more in-depth, where we can actually talk about dirty laundry that might not want to be necessarily aired on a public stream.
Mm-hmm. And yes, it does sometimes.
So you can book
Shop
with us.
local businesses. Buy and book their appointments. I've gotten readings from half of this group, and she's wonderful.
He's also really good too. Like his astrology and his numerology, like Leslie, since you really want to get into astrology, you should talk to him more. He's really good at it. And you should also absolutely bug Leslie with all of the wonderful things that she does. Get rune readings from her. I know I will. Teach me things.
I'll try. I'm going to plug something that is not related to me at all, but that I'm currently going through as a deep dive into the runes. I went and I grabbed it specifically. It's called The Runic Book of Days by S. Kelly Harrell. It is a year-long study of them, and you study each of the runes in 2-week periods. It includes journal prompts. It includes devotional exercises. It brings up the 8 seasonal holidays and a thing that you can do to celebrate on each of them. It gives casting instructions. It gives descriptions of the 9 Norse worlds at the beginning. It gives sort of like an overview of each of the runes, and then also how it applies to the time of season that it has you study during. Highly recommend this book. I've been going through it for a couple of months now, and it's really, really helpful as far as like not needing to you study them in a particular order, but you don't have to, you know, if you miss a day, you're not really like losing out on the full 2 weeks, and it gives you a lot of wiggle room as far as if you're having, you know, a really rough time, you know, the deadline isn't too long or too short to sort of make sure that you do find time for it. And I know some rune studies go by too fast and some feel like they go too long. I knew somebody who was like, you have to spend 6 months to a year on each rune. And I'm like, I mean, you spend a lot of time really, you know, working with the runes and constantly coming up with new interpretations of them. But, you know, if you only focus on one thing for that whole year span, like some of it's just going to be dead water, and you really have to focus on how the runes connect with each other as well as you. You can't really like separate them in such a long time span. But the whole, you know, study them over a year and sort of the beginning interpretation.
Hang on a second. Study each individual rune for a year.
6 months to a year, yes.
Okay, so basically you're spending 12 to 24 years before you even get the connection of the runes to each other.
Exactly. That's why I think that,
if we live for 1,000 years, that'd be great. But
yeah, why aren't we all elves?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that after going through, you know, a book kind of like this, where it has you study the course of all 24 runes over a year, you could then deep dive into each of them into like, I would start in a little bit smaller segments, like maybe dedicate a month to them or 3 months to a single rune and really deep diving it into it from there. But to get a big perspective on the entire thing, I definitely recommend this book as far as it has you learning all of them deeply within a year, but it also has all the information right there. So if you want to read ahead and get a deeper understanding of them before you actually go into the season that it represents, you know, you have that freedom to do so.
That's awesome. I might borrow that from you, maybe.
Yeah. I think it's on Amazon too. I got
but I know you. I could just steal it from you.
Well, I'm still going through it, so you can't have it yet.
Wow.
Yeah, I like that. Rare, exactly. All right, get the questions before we have to sign off here.
Oh, no,
The people out here are watching this.
that wasn't a question. It was just Carol said, "You guys have a blessed night. Thank you for your streams, and thank you for being one of our most consistent viewers, Carol. It means a lot.
It does.
It means a lot for all of our viewers that are constantly coming back, and our new viewers that, you know, that come every stream, and some of them come back. Like, you know, we would not be doing this without you guys watching. So it really, really means a lot that you do come back for all of these, and that you also enjoy meeting our friends, because we enjoy introducing them to you.
And this has been wonderful. This is the first time I've done. I do a couple of much more chaotic live streams on the Ordo Viatorum page, but this is the first time like I've done sort of an interview setting.
This wasn't chaotic for you?
I felt like there was a certain amount of chaos,
especially when at the very beginning.
If you haven't seen my live streams, like I am just a rambly mess of like I usually have a set of notes behind me somewhere in the background, and I have to constantly refer back to them because otherwise I get super off topic, and then I drive myself into a corner spiral of trying to talk about the rest of what I have on that information. And
see, that's why you need to have Libra there who keep the balance and keep you going, and you know, keep it nice and
Was that helping? Did I help?
yeah, that was lame.
That was lame.
So were you.
Hardly.
Hey, everybody out there gets to watch our father-daughter relationship. We're just so cute. Tammy, Tammy is booking a spot. Apparently, I got you, Tammy. I will put you on the list.
I was going to say, you know, what was say, you know, I helped bring you in this world. I could take you out again too.
You absolutely did bring me into this world, but I don't think you could actually take me out anymore.
Why?
Because I could snap you in half.
I really doubt that. but we won't
When
bother.
you roll to bluff and you only get a 5.
Well, actually, the thing is, what's funny is that the Dragon Tarot that we use, the Strength card, Leo card, her card, it actually shows a very, very prophetic picture. It shows a dragon on one side of the card and a lion on the other, and they're dancing, but they are completely separated with a rod and a series of vipers. Because the whole idea is that the dragon and lion energy, it's like matter, antimatter, and the fact of they can do incredible things, or they can wipe each other out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Thanks, JD.
Do it.
What? Like shit.
Ah,
Do
So
it.
wait, that's what happens
Okay,
during you guys'
do it.
private readings? Do you fight? I don't know, everybody. You'll have to book a private reading on their private event and find out.
thank you for that shameless plug, Leslie.
that was pretty shameless, actually. So, do we have any other questions, by the way?
No, everyone just wants to see us fight. Oh, good. Jello wrestle. Excellent.
I had a question. You asked it.
I did.
What's older, runes or tarot?
No, we talked. Did we not talk about that?
I thought we did.
I
No,
thought we
we-
talked about that.
No, we went over how old runes were. I don't think we discussed whether the runes were older than tarot or not. It's a curiosity.
Well, I guess also the fact that it depends when you consider tarot, because tarot was first used actually like for games before it became for a
Yeah,
divination tool.
tarot was first like known
Let's assume
in.
that I don't know that.
Okay, well, so
Well, now you do. I told you.
okay, well, so the first like known instance of tarot being used, and I just mean like the cards in game form, was like Italy in the 1500s. So I am
The Viking Age was about
before
500
that.
to 1100. So,
Yeah, so I think runes win.
Yeah, so
Ooh,
probably runes would win. Yes.
that. Runes win.
but it depends on which rune set you're working on, because again, there's the Elder Futhark, there's the Younger Futhark, there's the Anglo-Saxon Futhark, there's the
So what I'm
Icelandic.
saying is we're gonna have to have you on again so that you can just explain all of it.
Now she's just showing off.
I was going to say.
I only
now-
do the Elder
Now we
Futhark.
do copies
I
with the man
would
from
pick
Middle
three.
Earth. I think.
So
Okay, we're really getting off the rails now.
yes,
We can go further.
so if you would like to see a Fafnir and Spawn fight, let us know in the comments. Maybe we'll pull something together for April Fool's Day.
The comments weren't enough already.
More comments, more. Give us 1,000 likes.
All right, we're gonna get it. I got one of my friends to 1,000 comment on something because
Just
she said
watch,
that
it's
she
gonna
said
happen.
she did. So
Thank you, Sound Man. Thank you.
Boy.
So
I'm that guy that makes it awkward all the time.
yeah, on this note of Jello, I think this is where we are going to call the evening. Thank you so much for everyone who watched, for everyone who asked really, really awesome questions, and thank you, Leslie, for agreeing to join the madness for an evening.
Yes, you became part of the madness. So now you have been touched by this madness, and now you are one of us. One of us. One of us. Google double. One of us. She is
you don't
more than-
realize how many gods of craziness there are in the Norse pantheon. I was already one with the madness. Also, that makes me think
Where's
of
the fight emoji? I don't know, JD. Find the fight emoji.
is it just a whole bunch of different fist emojis and then
I don't know.
I'm searching.
and then like the explosion one?
that looks like the thing for the Notre Dame fighting Irish.
Here, ready? We're
little
doing
guy.
fisticuffs.
Is this like Rock'em Sock'em Robots?
Yeah.
I was gonna say fisticuffs are like this, guys.
No, you ever see Rock'em Sock'em Robots? And they're like they go like
Yeah,
this.
well, those ones are like that.
It's ridiculous.
Was
But
that
you
a-
were both doing like this. That's like
My-
flying.
Oh my gosh, Leslie, don't make me make a cripple joke about myself.
No, I was making fun of your dad saying we're doing fisticuffs and then doing this.
Yeah, no, that's what he do, and that's also what I do. It's fine. This is fine. This is totally fighting.
Like I said, I was doing Rock'em Sock'em Robots because that's what they do.
I don't know why they're like this way.
Yeah,
but
it's
it's
just,
like
but
me.
then they go like this. Yeah,
Yes.
it makes no sense.
Not proper fighting styles. Come on.
Well, no kidding.
No such thing.
So,
All right. So on that ridiculous note,
on this absolutely ridiculous note,
Now that we've devolved,
We've
Oh,
devolved
we've
from-
devolved. All right, that's for sure.
Thank you to everybody who has been.
Thank you again. Yes.
Thank you to everybody who has been commenting on my hair in the comments. Thank you. I enjoyed chopping it all off. It was fantastic.
I'll have to read the comments afterwards because I can't see I'm too far away from the computer. I can't see what anyone's writing.
I know, that's why I read the comments, because you're blind. I'm in control.
There is nothing wrong with your television set. You adjust the picture.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much. We will see you on the 12th, and we will see you on Black Friday, the 27th, for those of you that sign up to do a private stream. And for those of you that would like to have a free mini reading from us, there are now, since Tammy booked one, there are now only 9 spots available.
And then
so
there were 9.
get it when you can. They do go very fast.
They do.
The last month when we did this stream, by the time we actually went live, we only had 3 spots available. So.
And then 4 people who actually did show up.
Yes. So there were a ton of people in the comments that wanted readings.
And they got them.
So.
Anyway, on that note.
Thank you, Lord Fafnir and Spawn, for having me on this. It's been honestly fantastic. And if you ever need anything again, I'd love to actually do my research so I'm a little less scatterbrained and bring in more history because, gosh, I love history.
We love history, too. It's almost like we met you at Ren Fairs or something.
Which is, a plethora of history at Ren Fairs, of course.
Look, Ren Fairs are to history as Cocoa Puffs are to nutrition.
Yeah. As a good nutritious breakfast. If you've never heard that, that was one of the first things I heard going to a Ren Fair, and I thought it was perfect to say that. Yes.
Yep. No, definitely accurate.
Yes.
But,
very well.
So thank you for joining us, Leslie. Thank you for joining us, everybody who watched, everybody who had a question. Mm-hmm. You can find us on our Facebook page and on our website, and you can find Leslie on her Facebook page and all of the other places that she's told you about. We've done a couple commercials. You got the gist.
Exactly.
And on this note,
merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again.